Hi, Sarah. How are you doing today?
Hi, Shell. I'm great, thanks. And you?
Awesome. Thank you. It's great to have you. And yeah, for those of you who don't know who Sarah is, she is a holistic health and healing coach. I got that
Yeah.
right, didn't I? Okay, yes. Yeah, she's a person I just connected with very recently on Instagram, and then we had a chat, and just things kind of started flowing, and it seemed like, it's like we kind of know when you meet a person, even just online, that you're going to get along because we have a lot of things in common. And then we're like, well, yeah, let's do this. Let's record a podcast episode. And yeah, so it's great to have you. What would you like to start with? Because I was thinking maybe you could start by sharing your journey a little bit with our listeners.
I think that's a great place to start as well. So my name's Sarah Dawkins, and I was a registered nurse for 20 years, and I'm now a holistic health coach. And I transitioned from nursing to coaching because I wasn't getting the fulfillment that nurtured my soul from nursing. I felt that I was helping the clients in the hospital, but only through the medical model, because that's all we were allowed to do. And there's so much more that we can do for healing. So being a holistic health coach was at odds with working in the medical model. So I decided to leave the nursing role and pursue the health coaching role. And I'd previously healed myself of multiple health problems, from candida, joint pains, headaches, suicidal depression was the very last one, thyroid problems, burnt out adrenal glands, eczema, psoriasis, acid reflux. So I've gone through a whole range of like normal health problems and healed those. And I thought, how can I help the world? Partly I can help as a coach and help others to understand their own journey. But partly I thought I could write a book about my own journey, my own healing. And so I started to write about it. But then I thought, well, actually, this is just about me. And how many people can I help? Only the people that have had the health problems that I've had. So that's when I had the idea to bring on board a lot more people who feel a lot more health problems. And 74 other people came on board, and my book, Heal Yourself, was born. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you so much for that intro. And I didn't know before, when we talked, you didn't mention that you had suicidal depression, right? You said. And that seems, it just kind of like struck me as like something super important to talk about a little bit more on here, because I do feel like a lot of people listening have had these thoughts, even if it's just, it doesn't have to necessarily be to the point where you're going to commit suicide. But, and I can speak for myself, I did have a period in my life where I just didn't want to be here. And just that, those thoughts of wanting to disappear, not knowing how to disappear, but wanting to, that's kind of leading to that kind of depression, right? And I do feel like a lot of people, like I said, that are tuning in, have had these moments in their lives because we just feel like we don't really belong anywhere. So maybe can you just expand a little bit on how you got yourself out of that? Like, what were the steps that you took?
Well, first of all, I went to the doctor because I was still quite in the medical model, but so I went to the doctor who diagnosed it. And having had depression postnatally, I decided I didn't want to do antidepressants again because they just left me feeling like a zombie. So I told the doctor this time, I said, I'm not going to take antidepressants. So he's like, well, do you want sleeping tablets? Like, no, I don't want any pharmaceuticals. I'm going to heal this. And he's like, well, you can't, you need medication. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I really had no idea. And I walked out of there thinking, you know, what am I going to do? You know, I'm already in this low mood.
Wow.
But we had dogs. So every day I had to go outside and walk the dogs. And I would walk outside with my head down. I didn't want to make eye contact with people. And that was a daily occurrence because the dogs needed walking. So slowly but surely, doing this every day, I started to notice little things like there was a crack of blue sky, because I was in the UK at the time, crack of blue sky and the grey clouds, and then the trees were coming into bud, and then I'd see the trees swaying with the wind, and there was a little river that was alongside the path that I walked down. So I started listening and noticing. So slowly but surely, I started coming out of myself and noticing all these little things. And looking back now, I know I was becoming mindful, but at the time I had no idea what I was doing. So I just started tuning into what was going on with me, what was going on around me. And as I started to do more of this, I actually started to feel better, in that my days weren't quite so dark. I wasn't crying every day. And then I started to think, well, what else can I do to help myself, because I'm starting to feel better. So I started doing some meditations, and I tried to do the sit-in with the cross-legged thing, and they're doing nothing, trying to empty my mind and just be. And this mind chatter was going, "You just still worthless, yada, yada, yada." So I started looking into guided meditations on YouTube to help me. And initially it was just to find peace in myself, just to find joy, just to find out who I was, just to try and lift my mood. And I also started practicing gratitude, just that I'm actually still alive. I have got a loving family, a roof over my head. So the practicing the gratitude, the mindfulness, and then doing some meditations through YouTube. And then as I started to feel better again, I started doing meditations on, dare I start looking into my future, and what does my future look like, and what's that going to, how different is it going to be? Because where I'm at now, I'm so unfulfilled. And that's when I started meditating on, can I be an entrepreneur? Can I set up a business? Can I win awards? So it was all, big things, but little things as well, like sitting down with a really good cup of coffee, or somebody would have a text conversation with me. So there's lots of little things that we can do, and breathing, just simple breathing exercises, just following the breath into your body and being really aware of how it feels, how it sounds, how expanded your lungs can be, and then breathing out, because that oxygen helps us as part of our healing journey as well. So they're all little things, really, but they're all very necessary on the journey to health and wellness.
Wow, yes, I agree with you on everything you just said. And I can also speak for myself that especially mindfulness was something that I discovered and got into little by little, because at first I had a big resistance to it. I don't know if you experienced that, but it was like, I can't really sit there and just, be calm, and I have to do things. I was always distracting myself from looking at what I didn't want to look at, right? And so that was a big thing for me, is like really learning how to be more mindful. And to me, it's even something that I'm still working on a day-to-day basis, because it's easy to forget sometimes, right? To be in the present moment. And, sometimes we have these moments where like, wait a second, did I just do that? You can't remember, because you're not present, right? It's like, oh, you kind of like skip moments of your life. You're doing things on autopilot a lot. And I do think it's a big thing to train ourselves to be really present, right? And
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And when I started being mindful, I was only mindful while I was out walking the dogs. I couldn't be mindful because I didn't know what I was doing. So in the home or out shopping, I couldn't be mindful because I didn't know what I was doing. Whereas walking the dogs, I was outside in green space on my own. So I think I was more able to just be and tune into what was going on around me. Whereas, at home, it was just my normal place. And I couldn't find a way to be mindful at home until I'd started to feel a little bit better being outside. And I think outside space is so good as well for healing.
Yeah, that's true. Nature, right? Find that connection that we naturally have with nature, and then sometimes we tend to forget as we grow, especially those of you who have been growing up in big cities like me, for example, right? It's like you do have maybe parks and stuff nearby, but you're mostly used to seeing cars and all the noise, and then your body just kind of gets used to that. But it's, that doesn't mean your nervous system is necessarily in a good place at that moment. It's like, and when you're used to that since you're little, it's like when you grow up and you realize like, oh my gosh, all these years I've been living, in this like in a way tense environment, and my nervous system needs to like regulate and really find that inner peace. And then once you start finding that, what I found, and you can probably also agree with me on this, is like, and then you said it yourself too, it's like once you start doing that, just little things, all of the rest just kind of starts falling into place little by little.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And like we've both alluded to it, the inner work, we can just start off really small. And I think that's the key, because, when you look at healing, it's so multifaceted that you can become overwhelmed with the sheer volume of what do I need to do and how do I need to do it. So I think pick one small thing and start focusing on that. And then when you're getting better at doing that, or adding more things, or if you feel the urge to add in more things, do so. But really, I think the key to it is start really small.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I agree. Wow. And then everything else you said, of course, of gratitude. Yes. What do you have today, right? What I like to say is, I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw this somewhere, whereas it's like, think about what you have, because the things that you don't have at the moment, you don't really need them, or else you would have them. Like the universe provides you what you need
Yeah.
in the moment. And if it's not providing you with something, it's because maybe you're wishing to have that, but it comes maybe from a place of lack, or you're wishing you had that, but really, do you really want that? Does your soul really want that? Right? So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing is about, what do we need for our highest good? Because we can have wants and needs and desires just because, but are they really what we need, or is it just what we want?
Yeah, exactly, right? Sometimes we confuse those two. And this, I guess, kind of leads into the next topic that I would like to talk about with you, which is shadow work, because I know that your work involves a lot of this type of inner work, shadow work. And we were talking about this the other day. Yeah, what does your soul really want? And sometimes when you haven't done enough of that inner work, you think you want certain things, but those things that you think you want actually stem from some sort of trauma or things that you haven't dealt with within yourself yet. I'll give a clear example. Let's say you're saying, oh, I want a relationship with a person that is very good at communicating, but if they're not good at communicating, I don't want that. It's like, but where is that stemming from? Is that really what you want? Or is it because maybe in your childhood you didn't have that communication with your family, and now you're looking for someone to have that with, but you're actually being over needy, and so then you attract relationships in which you actually don't get that. You're gonna get people who are going to abandon you all the time and not respond to your text messages, because it's trying to make you see, hey, this is some shadow work that you have to do around that. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I see a lot of my clients come to me, and the problems stem from their childhood. Really, they've got roots in their childhood. So once it's, as we get talking, and well, is that really a problem, or is there something underneath that? And then, is that really a problem, or is there something underneath that? And then when we look back to what happened in their childhood, we can see a direct correlation to what's going on now. 'Cause I had a client recently, and when he came to me, he said, oh, I had a great childhood. I could do what I want. Basically, I could be out all hours of every day. And then the second session I had with him, he's like, actually, I had a really bad childhood. I had to bring my siblings up because I was the eldest. And my parents, to teach me a lesson, took me to a children's home and dumped me there. So it's like, I can totally see, how that now has impacted your life. But his first thought was, I had a great childhood. And that's a lot of people's, but it's, when we dare to look back and do that shadow work and address the issues that we've either hidden or not remembered, it's about what's underpinning the behaviors and the thoughts and your actions. Where do they come from, and what's underpinning that, and what's underpinning that, and what thought or belief underpins a behavior or a thought that you have now? Where does it come from? Because in the main, unless we've become conscious of our beliefs ourselves, we're using the beliefs of our parents because we're running on that autopilot. So once we become conscious of a belief, why do I believe that about that? Is it my belief? And if it's not, change it. You know, I was raised in a medical model, so I believed that's all there was. I went to nursing school. I trained as a nurse. I became a nurse. I've nursed for 20 years because that was my belief, that you when you're sick, you go to a doctor and he gives you a prescription and a diagnosis, and you get well. But then, you know, it was through a process of learning that I then changed my beliefs that actually to get well, I just need to tap into my body and take my responsibility back. And I realized that the belief that I needed a doctor came from my parents because they were in the medical model. So I changed that belief about myself. And now I know that I can heal myself, and we can all heal ourselves. We're born innate healers. So it's about understanding where your beliefs come from and changing what no longer serves you.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. So then can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, you know, with as a holistic health coach?
Sure. I work face to face or on the internet or on the phone, depending on whether the client wants to be videoed or just on a phone call. And it's a case of see what condition they present with, or what problem they present with, or what diagnosis they present with, and look at what the body is trying to say through the symptoms that they've got, or where the belief about what the problem is that they've got. So it's about unpicking what's going on in their mind and their body. And I just have a conversation with them and find out what their problem is, and then reflect their questions back to them for them to answer them themselves, because our subconscious mind is always working. It knows the answers to everything. It knows how to resolve all of our problems. So when I reflect it back or repeat what they've said, and so, you know, are you saying this? Is that what I'm understanding? I try not to give advice unless it's asked. I'm more about asking them, reflecting it back to them, so that they can, because they know the answers to their own problems. They just need help to find the problem and then the answer. So it's just a conversation. We just have conversations.
That's beautiful. Yes, I love that, because this is something I felt really strongly from you when we first talked, is that building the trust, right? Is like we were saying, it's like, oh, I really have to mention this because yes, people know, everybody knows what they need. It's just that they have to work on building that inner trust, and the trusting the intuition, but also fine-tuning the intuition, because we can of course take paths that are not necessarily aligned with our highest good or our destiny, or whatever you want to call it, but still you have the possibility of working on that as well, and you are doing a great job of doing that, it seems like.
Yeah, and it is that trust as well issue, because, you know, you can't just work with anybody and everybody. You have to have a feeling, have a knowing that you get on with this person, that you're going to, you know, be able to work with this person. And the flip side of that is that even people who say they want to heal, ultimately not everybody wants to heal, because they've built a life around their diagnosis, and they've become their diagnosis, and they've built a network of support. And to give that up and step into an unknown is takes a lot of courage, and it's quite frightening. And some people are not ready to do that, so they will stay within the diagnosis, and that because that is who they have become.
Wow.
So I like to challenge that a little bit, because I like to get people to push their boundaries. And when I'm working with clients, I try and really dig deep and quickly for them to find what their problems is. So really quickly in our sessions, they'll go, oh, wow, so this is because of this, and they will make the links themselves. You know, I don't see the point in drawing out sessions. So it's a case of how can we do this? How can we get to the bottom of it? And how can you heal this, or do the shadow work, or change your lifestyle or your environment so that you can heal it. Because ultimately, although I consider myself a healer, I don't heal people. I'm just a channel to help them to remember that they're born healers.
Right. Yes, it's you're like a reminder, right? It's you're facilitating, you're facilitating that activation of like you said, the natural healing. And that's amazing. Yeah, perfect. Because I do see that a lot, with people like you do it for me, right? I'm here and I want you to do it for me. And it's like I can't do anything except like activate what you already know within. And everybody comes with a different let's call it template or blueprint. So the way one person heals is not going to be the same way this other person is going to heal as well. So it's like it can get a little tricky as well to work with people, because it's not easy sometimes to either like the person will figure it out on their own. You can give them a few clues, but it's like you said, it's also their decision, right? It's like if they block themselves from that. And I think you said something very is very pertinent as well to kind of highlight, is that over identifying with something that you think you are. And it's like, well, who am I if I'm not ADHD? Or who am I then if I'm not, if I don't have a bipolar disorder? It's like you realize that all of a sudden you've had this I guess this false sense of like what defines you as a human being all your life, right?
Yeah, and you define yourself by your symptoms or your diagnosis. I mean, there's a lot of people in pain. And I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who I've met through Facebook here in Spain, and she said she knows that she's never going to heal the pain. So if she's in that mindset, I'm not going to change mind. That's who she feels that she is, and who am I to say any different? That's her prerogative, that's her opinion, that's who she is. She's defined herself by pain.
Wow, yeah, that's tough though, like to see that. And because it's like you said, it's kind of out of your control, and no matter what you say or try to influence people, sometimes it's like it's really up to them. And but what we're doing here is also just planting those seeds, right? And eventually maybe that person will make that choice. So that's what I always say to people as well. It's like, don't worry about trying to convince your friends or your family about your beliefs or whatnot. It's you're planting the seeds. Just say what you think, and then step back, right? And see what happens. And then you might even find yourself changing your mind about what you said. So it's like, there's things are changing and shifting all the time. So I do feel like a lot of people do get fixated on certain things, be it in terms of their self-identity or their beliefs and everything. So for me, it's time to recreate, those thoughts, and give yourself an opportunity to start fresh every day. It's be like, okay, what I thought about yesterday, just forget about that. Let's see. It's kind of like starting your day as a blank slate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it was somebody that planted a seed in my mind back in 2005 that actually jolted me out of the medical model, and I started doing a lot of research into natural self-healing, and that's when I started healing some of my minor complaints like acid reflux and psoriasis and eczema, just through natural ways, just through thinking differently. And it is about, just like you say, planting those seeds, because some of them will land. And because our subconscious mind is always on the go, it never shuts down. It takes everything in without judgment. That seed will plant. Whether they consciously will work on that is another matter. But it's, we've planted a seed, and it's just a case of let's hope that somebody else or something else can nourish it and help it to grow.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And I think that is super powerful what you just said as well, of the thoughts, and how that just by itself, a thought will definitely start changing things within your body. And sometimes you can identify one specific thought pattern that's actually causing a physical symptom. And you work with clients, and sometimes I know you told me you do like a meditation practice to kind of tap into those subconscious thoughts. I like doing dream work, and I've had dreams that literally show me what kind of thoughts I've been having, to kind of make, for example, some sort of mark appear on my skin where I'm like, where did that come from? And then I have it literally show up in the dream, like I'm lifting my shirt or something, looking at it, and something is going on where I was like, oh, I did something that was betraying who I really was. Like I was doing or saying things that were putting me in a situation that wasn't aligned with who I really am. So it's like it shows up physically, you know what I mean? So, and then once I started changing that thought pattern, I did see the mark literally start fading away. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And along that same line, you only have to look at the nocebo and the placebo effect, which have been scientifically proven that, we know that by taking a sugar pill, there's no medicine in it, and yet it heals us, but actually we heal us. But it's our thought that potentially we're taking something that we think will heal us. So it's our thought about healing from this little sugar pill that causes us to heal. And the flip side of that is true as well. Like you were saying, you can be told that when you take this medicine that it will cause nausea and vomiting, or it will cause upset stomach. And you can manifest those symptoms because a doctor is a person in authority, has told you that that's what will happen. And it's just your thoughts that you bring your mind's taking this on board and going, well, I'm going to manifest these symptoms because that's what I've been told are the side effects of this sugar pill.
I know, right? And it's crazy. I'm so glad that you touched on the psychology experiments and all that, because I don't know if you've heard about I think it was the Milgram study was that the one with the electrical shocks, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I just love that one. Well, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I think today they wouldn't allow psychologists to do that kind of study because it just goes against so many of the ethical rules. But they were actually asking people to sit in this like little booth, right? And then they had this doctor, quote unquote doctor. So he was wearing this white robe, or what do you call those things that doctors wear? And
just a white coat.
Yes, a white coat, exactly. So on the other side, there was another person, right? And they would have to electrocute them, but it's slightly, supposedly it was just slight shocks if they got the answer to a test wrong or something. And so every time they got it wrong, they would press a button, right? And the person actually would start yelling, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not sure this is a good thing. Oh no, keep going. They're okay, And it's like, all right, and they just kept pressing the button. So when it was that person that was like a doctor figure, they would literally go all the way to the end, pressing that button. And then when it was another person that was not wearing a coat, they would be like, no, you're crazy, I'm not going to keep doing this. There were more people that actually kind of said, no, I don't really trust what you're doing here. But just that thing that, like you said, if you believe that someone is proficient in whatever they're doing just because they're wearing that coat or whatnot, or the way they dress, and just people just kind of believe everything they say. And it's like, okay, that's kind of, I guess, just to highlight the fact that people can be so influenced, by just anything. And our thoughts create our reality.
Absolutely. And it's that authority figure, because when the actors put on the white coat and had the clipboard and they looked like doctors, and the people in the study were told they were doctors, they instantly see a person in authority, because a doctor is seen as a person in authority. But actually, we are the authority of our bodies. We know if we go inside and do that shadow work and listen to our body and trust what it's telling us, and use our intuition, we can do that shadow work, understand, like you've had in your dreams, where you're going wrong, what behaviors you're doing that aren't helping you, what thoughts you're thinking that aren't good for your health. We can tap into that and go inside and do our own healing work.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me see, what else did we want to talk about today? Do you want to add anything else to the work that you do with holistic healing and I don't know, let me know if you want to add anything before we hop on to the next topic.
Just that I think sometimes I will suggest magnesium oil for some of my clients, because studies show that our soil is so depleted that there's very little magnesium in our foods, and the majority of people are magnesium deficient. And magnesium is needed for over 300 different processes in our body, and it's particularly good for the heart and the mind. So any health issues associated with cardiac, hearts and minds, mental health, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. Magnesium oil is really, really good, but also it lowers blood pressure. It helps with anxiety. It helps with depression. It's so good for so many problems. It helps with arthritis and joint problems and aching muscles and bruises and inflammation, because its role is basically to reduce inflammation. So for some clients who've got lots of aches and pains, I will suggest an oil, magnesium oil. And I like magnesium oil because it's literally magnesium hexahydrate flakes and distilled water. You put it on the body, rub it in, so it absorbs 100%, and there's no fillers or preservatives or anything in it. And so you can absorb it into the body, and it will help with so many different things. But I don't recommend that for everybody, because I'm not a qualified prescriber, and I wasn't when I was a nurse. But I think, if people are aware of how to use magnesium oil and the benefits of it, it is truly helpful for health.
Wow, nice. That's great advice for people listening. Thank you. Because somebody tuning in either today or another day, in maybe next year, you never know. This podcast will be available just forever. So I know people are going to be tuning in when they need to hear what they need to hear. So that's really good advice. And also another thing I wanted to add was that even though people are not necessarily specialized, or, I think a lot of people get really caught up on, oh, is this person specialized in this certain thing? Can I trust them? Yeah, it's like, again, with the labels, right? It's like, well, if this person isn't an expert in, for example, viruses, how can I trust their information about what's going on with, the whole global situation? I'm just saying that as an example, because that's what I would get a lot from my family, is like people that were questioning, what's going on globally with the whole pandemic, where they were like, well, this person who's saying this, like, this person's not a specialist in what's called virology or whatever you call that. I'm like, but it's people with common sense that are really in touch with their intuition, and that that know something is weird here. So I tend to kind of go more for what do I feel about this person that's giving me this information, versus going and researching their title and what articles they've published and everything. I think there's a need to step away a little bit from that. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because ultimately science is also paid off as well as doctors. So it's, a title doesn't mean as much now as it did, say, 10 years ago. So it's about, how do you feel about that person? Do you have, do you feel that they speak sense? Do you get good energy from them? And where have they got their knowledge? If you do some background checks and investigations, where have they come from? Why would they know what they're talking about? Have they published anything? Because, as I say, some scientists have been paid off. So is their work genuine? Have they started with a problem to look at, or have they started with an answer and worked backwards?
Right, exactly. And like you said, a lot of people are paid off in the scientific community. Not everybody, because I don't want people to think that we're saying, oh, just don't listen to scientists. No, that's not the idea. But because some people are working and really what they're doing really does come from a good place. They're not trying to deceive you or whatnot. But the people that are above them are being, paid off, and that's where it all comes from, right? It's like the educational system has created doctors and nurses that are just not really in touch with who they truly are, and also with the reality of what's happening, but not because they don't want to. It's just because they just don't know. They're in a place where they just are ignorant, not, and I can say this even for myself. I was there as well. It's like, oh yes, the teacher said this, so it must be true.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to think, just because they could, should they have?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like the man who invented the nuclear bomb. He could do it, but he was, what he was told when he was inventing it wasn't the reason that it was going to be used for. So it's about extrapolating out as well. Where does it go from here? What is it? Is it going to be used for good, or is there a potential that something could be used for bad? And again, it's about, how do you feel about that? Where does it come from? Where is that origin? Where is that belief or that knowledge originated? And why is it being built, developed, pursued?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. I think we're touching on some really, really good topics here. And another one I wanted to talk about was your book, because I just thought it was really cool, that story you told me of how it came about. Can you tell our listeners about that? Because I just loved it.
Sure. So it started as I was going to document my own healing journey naturally from the suicidal depression that I'd had. As I started to feel better, I thought I'd start writing about it. And then I banged out 10,000 words about my story, the background, how it happened, what happened, how I felt, how I'd started to heal. And then I hit a brick wall, like, so what's the purpose of this? And I wasn't quite sure on the purpose, other than I wanted to get my story out. So I put it on my computer and left it for 5 years because I had no idea what to do with it. And then I woke up thinking, okay, so I can actually bring more people on board. So it's more people's healing. So I deleted all my background story about it and just concentrated on my healing and how I'd healed. And I started reaching out to other people who'd healed anything, and to write about what they'd had and how they'd healed, and to help other people. And I got a couple of people came forwards, and that little voice in my head went, what do you think you're doing? Who are you? You're not a writer. Who are you? And I'm like, oh, I'll put it. And because I'd only got 3 stories, I'll put it away in my computer again. It sat for another 2 years. And then one day I just woke up and the voice in my head went, you've just got to reach out. You've got to go out there and find people. So I started joining more social media sites. I started joining some groups. I started following people when they'd put what they'd had and healed. I direct messaged them, oh, I'm writing this book, would you like to join it? And it's to try and help people to see that they can heal some of the diseases that doctors say we can't. And several people came forwards, and then I started developing my book. And then I started looking at things that I hadn't got healers for, and started going out literally searching the internet for people who'd healed things that I hadn't got healers who'd healed. And I reached out to them, and everybody that I contacted said yes, they'd love to do it, because they had the same vision as me, want to help people to help themselves by showing them that they can heal things like multiple sclerosis, like ALS, that we call motor neurone disease, like autoimmune, like Lyme disease, all cancers. And I've got one gentleman healed after a stroke and went back to playing ice hockey. And it's like, my message to the world is, don't take on board what the doctor says if you're going to a doctor, but actually just know that deep in your heart, your body can heal itself. It just needs you to support it. So in the end, I had 74 people wrote about their own healing, plus my own. And that's how my book was developed. And once I published it in English, because I live in Spain, I went to a friend of mine who is married to a Spanish guy and has lived here for about 20 years. and asked her to do a Spanish translation. So Curate a ti mismo was born. And then I went to my Dutch friend and asked her to translate it. So I have it in Dutch. And I also went to a Belgian lady that I know in my village is very multicultural. Went to a Belgian lady and she's translated it into French. And I've currently got a lady translating it into Greek as we speak. And I'm hoping for more languages to come on board over time. And at the same time as I wrote my book, I actually wrote a 10-module course for people to heal themselves at home. But I've since revised that, and I've had the same idea as I did with my book to reach out, but I've reached out to coaches who have lived experience. So people who've not been their true authentic self, people who haven't looked after themselves and taken self-care, people who haven't forgiven and let go. And so they've all done all of the things that they've written the modules for. And I've got 13 coaches. And I've expanded my course into smaller bite-sized chunks to be 20 modules now. So it's about trying to build a bigger community is where I'm aiming in bringing people together. So people who read my book can reach out to 74 different people because the authors have all left their contact details. People who do my course can reach out to any one of the 13 coaches who've donated modules on their own lived experience within the subject of the module. So ultimately, I'm building this much bigger community to bring like-minded people together, but to show people that we can heal ourselves. And here's all these people that have done so. And, they're willing to help you and support you on your journey, should you wish that.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I will for sure put the link on this episode so people can check out your website and see where they can find your book. And yeah, and it's just so in line with the objectives of this podcast and also my website, which is going through a little bit of a revamp, but it's still going to be pretty much the same in terms of like the aim is to bring people together and also to explore different ways in which you can activate yourself, heal yourself, and it's not going to be the same thing for everyone, but it's providing those different kind of perspectives, kind of like you did with different coaches and different just different people that might, one person will spark 20 people, another person will spark another 20 people, and so on. And so this grows, right? It's amazing.
And hopefully the people will reach out to people, and so it is bringing people together. It's sparking friendships, it's sparking healing.
Yes, exactly. And this is a perfect way in which you can do this type of work without necessarily overworking yourself, and you yourself reaching out to everybody. It's creating those links, right? And that's exactly what I've been envisioning as well. So, yeah.
And actually along that, I'm collating people and the coaches who've written for my modules, because I'm now organising a summit for the 7th of January to bring all the coaches together and give them a platform to put their own message out to people about their own healing, and put what they've written for the modules on my course. So it helps me to give them a voice as a thank you for donating the articles on healing for my course. And I will be advertising that shortly through social media.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's great. That sounds really exciting. Wow, this is very inspiring. I think your story is very inspiring to anyone who's tuning in today, because it's not like you had it all easy and all figured out since the beginning. We can tell that you've had those moments of self-doubt, or those moments that it's not always easy, but you keep going, right? And you have that vision, even though it's not 100% clear, or you're like, really, I think you said somebody told you, oh, I think you're going to be doing this, and you're like, what? I don't see myself doing that, or I'm not capable enough. And we've got all these little voices in our heads, right? But it's like, okay, what can I do today to just feel good about myself, first of all, and then other stuff will start falling into place, and then things will become more clear as I go.
Yeah, Yeah, it was a friend of mine with gifts, shall we say, who told me years ago that I would write a book. And I'm like, I'm trying not to kill myself and get through this. I don't see me writing a book. And then last year, she said, you will open global wellness centers. And I'm like, wow, I'll just hold that, because that's just huge. And then this year she said, I've just been told you need to do some podcasting. So, maybe after my summit, I might start a podcast.
Yeah, that's so funny, right? It's like how some people see our potential like right away, and they can see our future, but we ourselves just kind of tend to be like, oh, I don't think I can do that, or we doubt ourselves a lot. So I think that's just a perfect example of how I'm gonna say something that I just kind of noticed. Let me know if you agree or not, but it feels like you're doing this work, right, of helping people to build trust within themselves, because in a way that's something that you also sometimes even struggle with today. And I can speak for myself. Like we tend to help people with things that we ourselves have struggled with, or we still struggle with today. And through helping those people, we're also helping ourselves.
Absolutely. Because when she told me to set up, to start doing podcasts, I'm like, oh, I know nothing about podcasting. So I've been guests on quite a few podcasts to try and build up the confidence, to understand what it's all about, so that when I start mine, I've got at least an idea, having been on a few. But yeah, the fear when she said start podcasting, I'm like, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I'm capable. It's just pushing those boundaries, stepping out of that comfort zone and feeling the fear and doing it.
Right. So I have a question for you. Is this something that you feel you would really love to do, the podcasting?
I think it's just further the message that people can heal themselves, to tap into your innate self, or your inner wisdom, or your higher self, or whatever you want to call that, your body wisdom, just to get people to understand that we can, we know what we need, to understand themselves, but also to support them to understand what changes they might need to do in that, or make in their lifestyle, in the food that they exercise, but also the thoughts and the beliefs. It's a whole, it's huge. Holistic healing's huge. It encompasses so much, but as we've said, baby steps. Just choose one thing that you think you can start with. So I think my message is vast, in that you can heal yourself, and there's all these different things that you can do. So pick something you want to start with, and then just let it. It's a journey. It's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. And healing's not linear. So for me, I think once my summit's out, done and finished, I can then look at starting a podcast with regards to getting the message out to people that they can heal themselves, and there's people around the world that can support them. They don't have to.
So you think that would be something you would enjoy doing, regardless of the fact that it might seem a little challenging? You still do see yourself wanting to do that, right?
Yeah.
That's so you got your answer, right? Is yes, go and do it. Because when we feel resistance, but it's a fear of more like excitement, perhaps, go and do that, right? And it's not because a friend told you. It's more like maybe she was sparking that remembrance, of like something that you yourself already knew, wanted to do even before you came here, perhaps, and but then there's also free will, right? You can decide not to do a podcast, and you're not going to go do it just because somebody else told you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's for me, my why is to help other people to know what they can do, and to remember that they were born innate healers. So, my book was my first message, and then my course was my second message. My summit is helping people, so it's kind of tied in with my second message, and I suppose my podcast is a third way to get the message out. It's the same message, just in different avenues.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect, right? And just you being here as well, it's already also starting to create ripples for another part of the population who might not listen to another podcast that you recorded in another platform, but you're doing it in several platforms. So now you're just going to be everywhere. And and those who are ready to receive the signal and actually, yeah, start that journey of inner work and self-healing, those people are, they're ready. And I'm really excited for when this podcast is going to come out, because I'm sure it's going to spark so many people. So yeah, really good.
I hope so. I hope I can take a leaf out of your book, Michelle.
Of course. And you know what? The whole opening the wellness center also was like, wow, that's definitely something that I've been kind of envisioning as well. Like there's going to be like hubs of people doing different things, and we're going to help each other connect. It's going to be networks and yeah, and then we were talking about this the other day when we had our call, remember? It's like, oh, well, how is that going to look like? And how am I going to do anything for that? Like, what is my role going to be? And so I've been thinking about this as well. It's like, yeah, I want that to happen. But yes, we've got to keep connecting, right? People need to connect more and speak more. And if you're listening to this and you're also really excited about what we're talking about, is, please don't hesitate to connect with us on Instagram or through here on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, because yeah, I mean, it's important to connect, and to get these projects going. It doesn't have to be one project. I think it's going to be a lot of different projects, but that have kind of the same general aim,
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too.
Yeah.
Creating hubs and centers all over the world and networking and linking them all together, because ultimately our aim is the same: to help others, to help themselves, to heal. So I think networking is really important.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I was thinking about like what else did I want to add on to this, but let me check my notes. I think we covered the main points. Do you have any further thoughts?
At the minute, no, we've covered an awful lot, haven't we?
Oh, yes, I remember now. I did want you to tell us about what you do with the MBTI, because I thought that was really interesting.
Oh, of course, yes. So my husband and I have started researching the MBTI, the 16 personalities, not to put people in a box like MBTI does and say you're an INFJ or you're an ESJ, ESFP. It's more about finding out how your personality interacts with you and the world, and understanding where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and it's about so for example, my strength is I'm a sensory gatherer. I like to gather sensory, so I've got lots of books, I like lots of information. I don't organize very well. So because I'm running this summit in January, I've had to sit down and write a spreadsheet and try and email people and organize, and I find I can organize, but I don't like it as much as I like reading and gathering information. So but I know now that my weakness is organization. So I'm building that and I've stopped gathering so much to put my energy into organizing. And it's about showing people we use savior and demon, like, so your primary focus is the mind sensory. But because it's my biggest, we don't see our biggest trait because we're doing it all the time. It's us on autopilot. And then we've got two middle traits that we see because they're quite balanced, and we see both of those. And that's who we think we are. But when other people see us, they see our savior and what we call the demon, the part of us we don't like or we don't use or we don't know. So the idea is what we're doing with this is like observational. We watch people to identify their personality traits rather than them assess themselves, because we don't see a lot of ourselves. And then I give them my husband's written a document. It's currently at nearly 60 pages, I think, on the different parts of what it all means and how it all fits together. So that then we can give the client a document to say, this is your personality in the MBTI world that we've observed. But what we want to take from that is not that you know, you're a special person and you're very nice and this is what you like and this is what you do. We want to go, this is the part of you that you don't see. And this is the part of you that you need to bring into balance. And this affects you potentially in this way or in this way. You know, do you see how that plays out in your life? And can you put more energy into developing that, either do more like myself, organizing, or interact with the tribe, as in other people, more to get their feedback, so that you know how you fit in with them. So it's helping people to understand themselves a lot more. And my husband's done a lot more research than I have, and he's teaching me. So at the minute, we've only done a few clients, but the feedback is really good. Like the gentleman I was telling you about, who said he'd had a really good childhood. We did observe his personality and gave him the sheets, and he found it incredibly informative. And he saw the side of him that he didn't normally see. And now I see that he's interacting with people a lot more, so that he understands more of how he fits in with people, what his role is with people, with family, with friends, with work. So that's helped him enormously. So it's still work in progress. And at the moment, we're just doing a few free, so that we can put our theory into practice, and discuss it with the people who we're working with, to see what their thoughts are, their feedback is on the work that we're doing with them.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. And I like how you emphasize the fact that you don't want to put people into boxes, because psychology does tend to do that quite a bit, even though sometimes they say they don't, but they do. And yeah, I see a lot of people running around saying, oh, I'm an JF, blah, blah, blah. I even did the test myself one time. I totally forget what I was. But yes, we over-identify. And coming back to the things we were talking about from the beginning, you know, it's like over-identifying with even those kinds of traits, personality traits, or even a zodiac sign or whatever. We need to start stepping away from that as well. It feels like to me, it's like, and then what you said also about identifying things that people don't necessarily want to see, that sounds a lot like shadow work.
Oh, yeah, very much so. So it's identifying the parts of you that you don't see and you don't like to do. But you know that you need to do those things. Like for me, you know, setting up a spreadsheet, like, wow, it's all abstract. It's not tangible. I like touchy feely. I need to do that, because I need to understand more abstract, because I'm a very sensory person. So, you know, when I've got sensory and abstract together, it makes me more rounded.
Exactly. And that's and that reminds me of the concept I told you about the other day, is a golden shadow. It's like when you look at those things that you don't necessarily like about yourself, there are so many nuggets in there that can help you develop certain capabilities that you have. But when you transform them and you use them in a more productive way, you can actually develop, that golden shadow aspect, which is the hidden potential that we all have.
Yeah, and I clearly need to work on my organizing, to get the podcast up, to get the summit up. You know, it's not going to do itself. So it's a huge lesson for me, but it's necessary, and I'll benefit from the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of knowing really what is it that you want, and what do you see yourself doing, even if it's just a few months later. Sometimes it is nice to plan a little bit in advance, and then to kind of set your your focus on a specific goal. Sometimes it doesn't have to be super clear either, because I've had that happen a lot, is that I'm in the dark for a lot of time, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, now I know why I did all of this that I was doing, just because I kind of like doing it, but now it can turn into something that I can, work with, and have a little more structure around it. But my I guess, the thing that I don't really like is structure. And not that I don't like it, but it's difficult for me to find it. You know, I have a lot of ideas and stuff, and for me, it's hard to ground those. And so I really admire people that are very grounded, very earthy, for example, because I'm like way in the clouds all the time, right? But how can you work on that, right? If you're like me, then how can you work on grounding your ideas more yourself and stop looking for other people to do it for you, or just admiring them or being jealous of other people that can do it, because you can do it too. It's just, that is literally a golden shadow aspect, right? And so now it's like, yeah, okay, how can I work on grounding all that stuff, right? And maybe being more out in nature helps. Some people, like you said, it's like putting your feet on the earth helps a lot. And then also focusing on maybe, like you said, baby steps, right? It's like maybe you don't have a clear idea of what you want to do next, like myself, sometimes, but just kind of saying, okay, what can I do from one day to the next, something that will bring me joy and something that feels very aligned. And then you'll find yourself in a situation where you're going to meet certain people or see something that's really going to spark you and be like, I want to do this. That's how I've gone around, like, about in my life lately. It's like just kind of going with the flow. And then sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it.
Absolutely. And when I set up my first business, and I went to the bank manager to set a bank account up, he's like, well, where's your business plan? I'm like, business plan? It's like, well, what are you doing in your business? Well, I'm doing a bit of this, a bit of this, a bit of this, a bit of this. He's like, no, I need you to be, this is my business plan, and this is where I see myself in so many years' time. I'm like, I'll come back another day then. I had to go away and work out what I was trying to do. But actually, I had all these different ideas, and I wanted to remain open-minded. And I'm like, well, if I just go, but this is what I'm doing, and I'm going down this path, and in 5 years I see myself there, that's quite closed-minded. So I kind of wrote a business plan to please the bank manager, but so I could have the bank account. But I remained open-minded, and I had my fingers in a lot of pies because I didn't know which door. I mean, they're all open doors, but I didn't know which door would lead me to the future that I didn't know that I wanted. It was like, I don't know where I'm going. So, but all these doors are going to take me different places. And it's a case of just stay open-minded though, because what is meant for you will find a way. And it's just about having that open mind and trying lots of different things, because you will find that something that you try will work and you'll really enjoy it.
It's so true. It's like, don't be afraid of trying different things and maybe failing, because there's no failure really. It's just, there's no mistakes. It's just lessons, right? So just do your thing, make mistakes or whatnot, and that thing that you're supposed to be doing because your soul wants to do that, it will come in the right time. And plus all those other little things that you tried are adding onto your toolbox, giving you things that you're probably going to use for what you're actually really here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You learn from everything that you try, so you gain skills, so nothing's ever wasted. There is no failure, like you just said. There's just learning.
Yes, absolutely. And I was just thinking about what you said about the business plan. I'm like, yeah, I guess, I have an MBA, and like, yeah, but it's like you said, like, degrees don't have as much value anymore. Plus it's like, will that ever be useful? Because I don't even like businesses anymore. Am I even going to really have like a structured business? Because I can say, well, I kind of do have my business, but it's not really a business. It's more just like, it's my website. I provide certain services here and there, sometimes workshops, but it's still not like, oh, I'm, a registered in, whatever. Or I don't know, I'm not registered at all anywhere. So I'm like, should I write a business plan? I'm like, well, maybe not right now, but I think that skill will come in handy when I have something a little bit more, I guess, clear, or, it might be something that is not that structured, or that is not so much in the system, which is also another thing I've been thinking.
Yeah. Just remain open-minded and do what you like to do, and doors will open.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, this has been great. I don't know, I feel like we've touched on pretty much everything that we wanted to, and But maybe just let's wrap this up by any message or messages that you would like to give to our listeners, whatever you would like to say.
Yeah, I'd really like to say, believe in yourself. Really, truly believe in yourself. If you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't. Just believe.
It's that simple, right? Wow. Yeah, it sounds so simple, yet people find it so difficult. But you can, yeah, you will. And if you're listening to this, then you're on the right track.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. It's been really amazing.
Oh, thank you too, Michelle. It's been fabulous.
Hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
You too. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.